Afternoon, everyone. This is Rosemary Link in Iowa, USA, offering a 15-minute overview of the Convention on the Rights of the Child. I'm going to talk a little bit about the history and the United Nations resources. We're going to address the complexity of the Convention and its 54 articles through 7 clusters. And we'll talk a little bit about the 2 optional protocols. Going to outline a few value conflicts that slow the implementation of the Convention and also discuss implications for social work and human service practice. Eglantine Jebb said more than 100 years ago that we needed to do much more for the well-being of children. There was concern about children in mines, there was concern about lack of literacy, there was concern about housing. We've made great progress since then in many countries of the world. Children are no longer in most mines of the world, not all. Sweatshops all over the world are more visible, and literacy is climbing. However, Marian Wright Edelman, the president of the Children's Defense Fund, suggests that it's baffling why this has been such a long journey. Petitions have been gathered all over the world, and in 1989 the convention passed at the United Nations. Since then the implementation has been somewhat uneven. The convention is partly in memorial to children who were lost before it was passed. So for example, we have the death of Iqbal Masih, who is a child organizer for children who had been chained to looms. He was murdered in 1995 for his efforts at organizing. Baby M was a child born without forearms in Europe who only had an alphabet M instead of a name. And we know many children born with developmental disabilities in the past century who were not adequately named or remembered. The implications of the Convention on the Rights of the Child are vast, particularly for human service workers. They affect our day-to-day lives. They affect our communities that surround us and can reinforce the identity and safety of children. Certainly, the Convention has major implications for our efforts to address health. Polio is perhaps one of the success stories of recent years. We have a serious challenge remaining in terms of child trafficking, and we're going to talk a little bit about global interdependence. I just love this image of a child who was homeless, who's having a lot of fun painting at an agency for children called Southside Family Nurturing Center in Minnesota. There's a great deal of concern in the West, particularly in the United States, about handguns. Taking the US as an example, there are more safety regulations for car seats than for guns, and as you can see, 3,000 children are killed a year, and it is considered a deadly devotion. As we think about the 7 clusters of the Convention on the Child, we have the definition of the child, the guiding principles, civil rights, family environment, health, education, special protections. Nelson Mandela gave us this wonderful phrase in 2000. This global partnership will be guided in its work by the Convention, that luminous document that enshrines the rights of every child without exception to a life of dignity and self-fulfillment. The definition of the child is anyone under the age of 18 across the world. In many countries of the world, there is dispute as to whether children under 18 who commit crimes should be incarcerated with adults. Bowing in part to world opinion, the United States Supreme Court abolished the juvenile death penalty in a ruling that caused great controversy. Part of the discussion was whether one country should pay attention to what another country does in relation to child well-being. One of the things we encourage our colleagues to do in human service in order to be truly in touch with children is to remember our own childhoods. When were we most comfortable, unaware of adult stresses, or if this was a very tough age, how were we resilient and what promoted our resilience? In Jamaica, the schools have generated a booklet for children to understand their rights as a child, that they may not be hit or abused by adults, for example, and that gives them safe numbers to call. The idea of play is a vivid one the world over, and just as children laugh in the same language worldwide, they also find a variety of ways to play, regardless of economic well-being. These are just questions that our Slovenian students in Central Europe suggested that we think about when we're concerned with children's leisure and play. I was watching children in a marketplace in Mexico City playing with a couple of empty Coke bottles with stones inside. Extremely inventive. When we talk about healthcare, we're in the middle of a great deal of progress on one hand and concern on another. So Cuba is a terrific example of AIDS prevention. I already mentioned that we have made great strides in polio vaccinations throughout the world, including Africa and India. We have concern about the degeneration of an environment and public health in times of war, and the most recent outbreak of polio is in Syria, and it's cause for concern that the World Health Organization pays a great deal of attention to. We recommend that you look at the World Health Organization WHO site as well as unicef.org. UNICEF shows that the immunization rates are improving, and the Convention on the Rights of the Child gave an impetus to the focus on this work. This is a shocking statistic that 11% of the poorest children go to college, while 55% of the richest children in the world go to college. This is a detailed account of children's access to education and higher education. UNICEF tells us that we're seriously behind in getting girl children into primary schooling, but while making some progress. At the same time, here in spring 2014, we know that girls are being abducted hundreds at a time in northern Nigeria, and the world is concerned, not only watching but discussing action that can be taken. For 100 boys that are not in primary school, there are 170 girls not at school. Now this was 8-10 years ago, and our goal by next year is that all children complete primary school. Although this is unlikely, the Convention has helped make an effort and has strengthened the resources that go to this work. One of the problems for us is that we believe that people should not be hit. Striking a human being is prohibited in most countries of the world, and children, after all, are human beings. But in most countries of the world, there is the debate between discipline and punishment. The Convention on the Rights of the Child considers physical punishment to be in contravention of the right of a child to feel safe and to be safe. Many countries are speaking directly to these issues, and the concern is to find alternatives to physical discipline and to really avoid the punishment and go with the discipline that helps for positive future behavior. There are many parents' decisions that clash with the Convention on the Rights of the Child. There is excellent writing about international adoptions and how children as teenagers and young adults have crises of identity and can feel like foreigners in their own land. Jung Trunka, a child adopted from Korea into the West, talks very much about the loneliness of her journey to identity. Another issue is that parents will sometimes have faith decisions in relation to health that causes their children to be denied access to health. The example here is of Daniel Hauser, where the courts confirmed that the child would receive chemotherapy that was needed even though the parents resisted it. And then we know that in many countries of the world there is concern that when parents die or are divorced, that children become victims. In Slovenia, again, at their family centers, children have advocates when parents are going through divorce. When we think about healthy development, we know there are many child-friendly cities in the world, and that there is more and more attention to the needs of children. If you go to Pistoia, 50 miles north of Firenze in northern Italy, you will find a child-friendly city, and all that goes with that in terms of the city streets and the walkways and the control and regulation of cars. Odinadi is in southern India and works with children recovering from being trafficked in a very creative organization that is uplifting to visit, online or in person. You can look for more discussion of discipline over punishment at www.ssfnc, the Southside Family Nurturing Center. As we come to a close of this short review, tomorrow's world, to look into some aspects of the future, we do not need projections by supercomputers. Much of the next millennium can be seen in how we care for our children today. This is Kofi Annan's speech to the State of the World's conference, and I think that we would all agree that we need to follow both Kofi Annan's idea of the future and how crucial attention to children is, with Jay Ronka's idea of dragging the Convention on the Rights of the Child into our lived awareness, with the templates of action in our human service and social work centers, making sure that everybody knows the details of the Convention on the Rights of the Child, that we provide opportunities for children's voices to be heard, and that we work hard for their integrity, both physical, emotional, and intellectually, for all our futures. Thank you very much, everyone, for your attention to this short presentation. My email is rosemary.link@simpson.edu, and I'm happy to take questions.